to send the Thunder home. Lillard, long-range three.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't really know what we're going to call this series, but it's our first time we're having, an interview only on. It's not a recap, Sunday recap, but we have a huge guest on today. I'll wait to tell you who. Actually, no, you know from the title. Ric Bucher, NBA insider. He'll be joining us today. We just wrapped it up. It was an amazing interview with him. And wouldn't you say, Oliver?
Yeah, this is an awesome interview. You guys are going to be super interested, and it's a long one. I'm aware, but trust me, it's intriguing all the way through. And Ric, great guy, and he offered some cool insight and how the sports industry operates as well. So yeah, this is a really cool episode.
Yeah, nothing but respect to him. He took 1 hour of his night on a Tuesday just to do this for us. So
on Valentine's Day as well.
Yeah, love to see it. Welcome back, CO Sports Talk here with a great interview. Oliver and I are joined by Ric Bucher. What's your technical title?
First of all, you don't know that it's going to be a great interview. You're hoping it's going to be a great interview, but you really don't. We don't know that yet.
I got my hopes up.
I hope I'll deliver. What's my title? I am a NBA analyst for Fox Sports, senior writer with FoxSports.com, occasional co-host, man about town.
Yeah.
Well,
and I got a podcast, On the Ball with Ric Bucher.
How do you listen to that? Is it on Spotify?
It's on everything you could possibly imagine. If it's a podcast platform, On the Ball is on it.
Yeah, anywhere you get your podcasts.
That's right.
So I think we'll just go in chronological order. So talk about kind of how you started. So I know you're from Cincinnati.
Yes.
I know Matt's a Raiders fan, but you're a Bengals fan, I guess. So tough loss last night, but great season.
Yeah. I actually did my last podcast about it because I in getting into this business, you can't be a fan. You kind of have to give up your fan card. You try to be as objective as possible, or at least that's the way it was when I started. A lot has changed. So when I came in, it was you were supposed to be as objective as you possibly could. You were supposed to bend over backwards not to play favorites or have an emotional attachment to any team that you were covering. But that was when you had reporters and news. You had a distinct line between news people and entertainers or people who had shows. And now the lines have all blurred. I think some of it was, so you had the columnists and the writers and the news people, and then you had radio show hosts. And the radio show hosts weren't, they were like fans. They weren't trying to be objective. Well, then you had radio show hosts who were simulcasting their shows on TV. And then you had columnists who were taking radio shows. And then the whole debate thing started up. Jim Rome, I don't know if you guys know who that is. He kind of made the jump from being a radio host to having a TV show to being highly opinionated, challenging his listeners. And that whole debate thing kind of grew. And so now, fast forward, I'm working for Fox Sports, and Skip Bayless, as everybody knows, is a big Cowboys fan.
Yeah.
Marcellus Wiley, who I do Speak for Yourself with, is a big Chargers and Bills fan because he played for the Bills, and lives in Cali now. Emmanuel Acho played for the Eagles. He's a big Eagles fan, and they wear their allegiances on their sleeve when they talk about sports. So Bengals doing what they were doing this year, and me being involved with Fox Sports, and them giving me the opportunity not just to talk NBA, but to talk about the NFL. I got into being a Bengals fan.
Yeah.
And in spite of the pain of that.
And you're NBA centered, so you can have an NFL team too, which is nice.
Yeah.
I was
going to ask, growing up, I'm guessing the Cavs were the closest team? Were you a Cavs fan growing up?
No. Who was my team growing up? I kind of bounced around. It had more to do with players.
Yeah, more players.
Actually, you know what? I was a Lakers fan, to be honest with you. I was a Magic fan.
Were you also like a Yankees
Showtime
fan?
was when I was growing up. What's that?
Were you also like a Cowboys fan and Yankees fan, like a lot of the Lakers fans?
No, I didn't go. No, I wasn't. I was a total front runner, but it was when I was growing up. It was Lakers Celtics, and you were one or the other.
Yeah.
And for me, the Lakers were just Showtime was way cooler than the Celtics. So that's what I gravitated toward. When I would play games in the backyard as a kid, I would imagine myself the Lakers playing either the Knicks or the Celtics.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you went to high school in Cincinnati, I assume, and then you went to Dartmouth. So
yeah.
When you originally went to Dartmouth, did you like have the career in mind that you have now, or did you want to be?
Oh, hell no. When I went, I thought I was going to become a lawyer because I felt like I had to justify the money that my parents spent on my Ivy League education. Right. And so I couldn't write or do something, I couldn't be a starving artist. I always wanted to write, but most of the writers I knew, especially just starting out, were poor. and I didn't want to be poor. And so it was liberal arts. So I was a government major. I thought that was the most applicable major to have. And then I had an internship with Sports Illustrated when I was a junior. Back then, Time Incorporated had 7 magazines, and they had 30 schools that they would accept 3 applicants from each one. And from that pool of 90, they would pick 7 and place 1 with each magazine. And I actually wanted to be with Time magazine. I wanted to be the sports guy writing for Time magazine. I can't remember the guy's name now, but he had his own page every issue that he could write about whatever he wanted. And there was sports writers who wrote for the New Yorker. I wanted to write elevated sports. That's what I wanted. I wanted to be an elevated sports writer. Frank DeFord, Dan Jenkins, those are some of the guys that were my heroes at the time.
So around the time that you got that Sports Illustrated internship, that's when you kind of knew that that's what you wanted to do? Well,
yeah, because when I did the internship, like, all these guys were living all over the country, and they were just like parachuting in and covering the best events, but they, were living wherever they wanted to. They were in Espn or LA or whatever. And seemed to be making like pretty good bank. So I was like, wow, this would be way fun. Right. Yeah. I mean, not crazy bank, not Atherton Bank, not 10X Bank, not venture capitalist bank, but like, I'd be able to pay off. I'd be able to pay off my college loans fairly quickly. So, and it just looked like a lot of fun. So that's when I changed up, and I thought, I'm going to try to do this thing. I want to see if I can write for a living.
Yeah.
And then, you had a job. I remember you talked to my school, so I know a little bit about this, but you obviously
Casey's got he's got the cliff notes on my presentation. So if I don't tell it right the second time, he's going to call me out on it.
But yeah, you had a job that wasn't within sports, and then somewhere, was it Delaware? Someone called you.
So because I was at Dartmouth, I got sucked into going through corporate recruiting because all my buddies were, and like all the banks and the ad agencies and all of them came up to interview us. And so I went through it. I thought, writing. Elmore Leonard was a novelist who wrote for an ad agency. So I was like, I'll write novels on the side and I'll do the ad agency thing. And so I interviewed, and I got an offer from Leo Burnett in Chicago. And then about 2 weeks later, I got a call from the career development office or whatever. And they're like, there's this little magazine in Dublin, New Hampshire, that's looking for that's offering a 1-year residency for an editorial assistant. Would you be interested? And I was like, yeah, I'd be interested. So I drove down, interviewed, got an offer I got the offer for it. And so now I had 2 jobs and I had to make a decision. So I asked Leo Burnett for a 6-month leave of absence. And about 3 months in, or maybe not even that, maybe 6 weeks in, month and a half, I realized that the magazine thing was what really, the writing was what I wanted to pursue more than anything. And so I told Leo Burnett, and I went from doing that 1-year residency to set up a bunch of interviews in New York, Esquire, New York Magazine, every magazine that I could possibly get into. I had a little portfolio of like 4 or 5 magazine pieces, and which isn't nearly enough. It's like if you're applying for a job, like the kind of job that I was trying to apply for, you take your best 5 pieces from like 50 or 100 or whatever. Like I had my 5. So didn't get anything. And then I got a call. I had also applied for a bunch of internships just in case. And the San Diego Union called and said, we have this internship available if you'd be interested. And I was like, I don't know if I want to move out to San Diego for a 3-month internship and without like knowing if there's going to be any job afterward or what's happening. And they were like, well, we're going to have some we're going to have some positions that we're going to be adding. So if you do a good job in the internship, you should have a job to continue. So I was like, okay. So I came out and I did that and I got the job, continued, but I was covering high school sports. And like all my buddies were like working for Morgan Stanley and Leo Burnett and Ogilvy and Mather. They're living in New York and Chicago and like they're living the life. I'm in San Diego, living in a shoebox, covering high school sports, thinking this is not what my Ivy League education was supposed to produce.
That's true, yeah.
But I learned how to do the job. Because I had to keep my own stats. I had to develop my own, contacts. I had to get my own phone numbers. I had to learn the history of all the school. I had to do all that myself. And so what it gave me was the basis of wherever I went, whoever I worked for, I wasn't going to be dependent on the power of the outlet that I was working for to get my foot through the door. I knew how to sell myself and I knew how to dig out stories. I mean, all you had to do is like tell me, there's a game going on somewhere, or this is school over here. And I knew that I had the requisite ability to go out there and find a story.
Yeah.
And develop.
There's a guy named like Ethan Castle. He covers high school sports in the Bay Area. Yeah. And we're all just thankful for people like that. Cause you don't realize that like as a high school athlete, you don't get the attention that you get is so nice from like, there's people that are fully grown like adults like writing for us. It's nice.
And I will say this, like I didn't appreciate it then because I was just out of school and I was trying to like prove myself and I had really high aspirations but I have I'm right there with you, Casey. I have a whole new appreciation. We have a guy here in the Bay in Half Moon Bay, Mark Foyer, who used to, he got ill, but he would cover everything. He was, he was at every event, and I know what it meant to me as a high school athlete to see my name in the paper or to see my team covered. Like that was a huge thing. So I without question, I appreciate it. And Ethan gets after it. I really respect the work that those guys do.
He's active on Twitter.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, him and guys like Glenn Reeves.
Yep.
Dedicating their time to cover athletes is awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, and then you went to the San Jose Mercury or around there, right? And there's someone who covers a lot of high school sports. I know like Darren Sedebra from
Yep.
Mercury. But like, what'd you learn from there? And that's a big step up from there. And obviously that may have been the big sleep you had to get to where you are now.
Yeah. So I was in San Diego for a while, and it scared me because, first of all, it's not a good newspaper town. It's really not a good sports town, to be honest with you. And a buddy of one of my best friends from college got married in the Bay Area, and I was in the wedding, and I came up and I fell in love with the Bay.
Yeah.
And I was also scared. Ernest Hemingway has a line about the young man goes to Southern California and he sits down at 23 and he gets up at 64. And I thought I could see how that could happen, because you don't really have the change of seasons down there. So when I was down there for 4 years, it felt like just one long year. Like I didn't notice the passage of time. And I'm like, holy cow. I'm 25 and I'm still in San Diego. Like I need to get the bleep out of here.
Yeah.
And so I applied to the San Jose Mercury News, and they didn't offer me a job right away. But the sports editor asked me to send him my clips, and he would send me back like detailed critiques of my writing and gave me books to read, and really kind of like mentored me for about 2 years until, and meanwhile, like college beats were coming. There were jobs that were open that I knew were open with the Mercury News. I'm like, how come this guy is not offering me any of these jobs? Does he think I suck? Like, what's up? He's mentoring me, but he's not offering me a job. And then the 49ers job came up and he offered it to me, which was like the job, right? Now, to be fair, there was 2 other guys that were already veteran NFL guys that turned it down before he offered it to me. But still, I was thrilled, right?
Yeah.
So that's how I got to the Bay, covering the 49ers for a couple of years, and then transitioned over, because what I really, 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 even though I didn't admit it, like I couldn't pass up covering the 49ers. But what I really wanted to cover was the NBA.
Yeah.
And the idea of covering the Warriors just seemed magical to me. So that's where, ultimately I ended up, and I came in as Chris Webber came in, and I ended up getting to know Webber and the players, and I was just young and hungry and going up against a couple of older veteran writers, and I kicked their ass. There's no other way to put it. I kicked their ass. I broke every freaking story on the whole Webber Nelson thing for like a 2-year stretch. And so that kind of established me there. And then I was, and this is gonna sound so dated to you guys. You're gonna think like I'm talking about the Stone Age. So this will tell you how long ago this was. It doesn't feel that long ago to me, but it was. So AOL, AOL, right? No. AOL.com, like the website, the mail service thing. Oh, yeah. You've seen people with. I actually still have one. NBA Scribe at AOL.com. Right?
Yeah.
It's like Gmail. It's the same thing, except they got it's actually a website with news and stuff. Yeah, I bet you. Have you guys ever seen AOL? Have you ever looked at it?
I've seen like the logo before.
So good.
It's not ringing a bell to me.
Oh, you have no idea what I'm talking about. This is so good. So anyway, I'm at the Mercury News, and AOL comes to me and says, "We'd like you to write a once a week notes column about the NBA." And they were basically offering me as much for that column as I was making from the Mercury News. So I'm basically going to double my salary, my income, simply by writing this once a week notes column. And it will be a national column. So I can still continue to be sort of a local guy, but now have a national platform and a national presence. Still in my 20s, like that's a pretty good deal. I was pretty excited about that. The Mercury News wouldn't let me do it unless the content resided on their website. and AOL could link to the Mercury News. Now, not that big of a deal now. It was a huge deal back then. And it was really short-sighted of the Mercury News, because you'd rather have the Mercury News advertised on AOL, a national platform, than have AOL advertised on the Mercury News platform, right? It's bass backwards. Yeah. So that made me realize, when they said no, I couldn't do it, that made me realize I had to leave. And so that's when I ended up going to the Washington Post.
Okay.
And when I got there, they said, just give us a year before you go to ESPN. And I was like, I just got to the Washington Post. I just came from the San Jose Mercury News to the Washington Post. This is an iconic newspaper. It's my dream newspaper. I applied for an internship and didn't get one when I was searching around, and ended up at the San Diego Union. It was almost a year to the day that ESPN started its magazine and came after me. And when we went back and forth, and but ultimately I knew that newspapers were dying, that I had to get out of just the writing business, and I had to get into TV and multimedia and become a storyteller on different platforms, because people just weren't, the whole idea of newspapers is a little antiquated, and they didn't really make the shift to online well enough. So I jumped into ESPN, and then ESPN's approach is like, we'll try you at everything. We'll put you on TV, we'll put you on radio, we'll have you cover game. Like we'll have a sideline reporter. Like they'll just throw you out there, no TV experience. And if you can swim, then you get to keep going. And I was just good enough and learned on the fly to keep going. I was there for 14 years.
Wow.
Yeah. I think I read a newspaper for the first time in like 5 years today at lunch with my friends. It was just laying around. It's pretty cool. They are like police blotters, and I don't know.
Oh, the police blog's the best thing, man. The Half Moon Bay Review, that's like the first thing I go to. It's so good. It's mostly nice. DUIs and arrested for an outstanding warrant, but every once in a while you get an interesting one,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when did you join Fox? Did you go from ESPN to Fox?
No, I went from ESPN so I left ESPN, and I left ESPN because Matt and his sister Chance were, I don't know, like 5-6 years old. Mm-hmm. And I was spending all my time either on the road or back in Bristol, Connecticut in the studios. And I thought, I don't want to spend the next, 10, 15 years like this. And they go off to college, and I was a flyby dad. So I had an offer to do a radio show in San Francisco, sports radio show. And I was always intrigued by radio. Yeah. And that would allow me to be a little more stationary. And then the Warriors asked me to be their sideline reporter. So still was able to do some TV, did the radio. Then SiriusXM approached me about doing a radio show for them. And that would put me back on a national platform. And I could do it out of my house. So I didn't have to drive up to the studio. Cause at one point I was doing a morning radio show, and I was covering Warriors games. Started out doing the afternoon show, which I would do on Warriors nights. I would do it from the arena. Wow. And then the show would be done at 6:00, and I would step off and I'd go put a, coat and tie on, and then I'd do sideline for the Warriors. And then I'd go home. So I'd have a stretch of from 2 to midnight where I had to be on, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then it changed where I was doing a morning show. So now I was doing sideline, and then had to be up in the studio by 5 a.m. So a lot of nights I would just drive directly to the city, to the studio, and I would sleep. We had a meditation room with a couch in it, and I would sleep in the meditation room and then get up and do the show. And I could only, that was a grind. So when SiriusXM came along, I took that. I did that for about 5 years. And then Bleacher Report came after me and TNT. So I started doing Sideline for TNT and writing for Bleacher Report. And then Bleacher Report blew up their writing department, and just kind of went to all videos and stuff and
social media and stuff.
Yeah. And then Fox was next. And I did just TV for them for a little bit. Wrote a book with Brian Grant, who's a power forward, played for the Blazers and the Kings. And one of his sons plays is a DB at Oregon State.
Okay.
But anyway, did that. And then Fox started their Fox Sports app and gave me a writing platform and asked me if I wanted to write. So kind of back to doing all three platforms again. And now you're completely caught up.
Now we're to present day.
Now we're in present day.
What you're doing now, I feel like, is the best because you can do it from wherever you are. I mean, you can do it from another country, anywhere in the U.S. Because if I'm not mistaken, you have a TV studio. It's at your house, right? You don't have to drive anywhere to do Fox.
Yep,
Sports.
you can see the lights. See the lights there behind me. And let's see. So there's this screen right here. That's like a back screen. So that can put almost any background for Skip's show or Speak for Yourself or Colin's show. And what's really freaky is you see those lights, right? And the camera and everything. Like I don't control those. They control those down in LA. So when it's time for me to like do the show, suddenly those things like blaze up and the back screen blazes up. It's a little freaky to have
it's crazy
technology in your house that you don't have any control over.
They're spying on you.
Yeah, it's crazy they can connect from that far.
That is wild. And I know you mentioned that like you and Chris Webber are pretty close, you and Karl Malone. So like, what was it like, balancing out being a sports reporter, a writer, and being friends with them? Because, personally, like at school, I'm friends with a lot of the athletes, like if I'm broadcasting a game and I'm on some of the teams. So it can be hard.
Yeah, no, it's tricky. It is like, I don't know if it's funny. I guess in some cases I'd say that I became friends with, or I don't know if friends might be a little strong, friendly.
Yeah.
But always understanding that there was a certain line, like I still got to do my job. Right. And, I will always give you an opportunity to tell your side of it, but I'm not going to like distort the truth or what happened just to protect you because we have a good relationship. Now, the business has changed where now it's kind of, there's more of that. Like I can tell who has access based on how they write about it's almost like it's bartering. We'll give you this scoop, but it's because we know that you're going to write it a certain way that's going to make us look good. Like there was a little more honor when we came in. I don't blame the athletes or the coaches or the teams. I blame the media because we're the ones who gave that up. We're the ones who were willing to play that game. Kobe was probably one of the guys that I was closest to. In terms of, I knew him coming in, and when he was getting beat up by everybody and everybody was like, this is just a young punk. And Shaq was the favorite in LA when they first got together. He was the fun loving big guy, even among his teammates. And I just saw a young guy in Kobe who wanted to be great and was going to work harder than anybody else and was kind of, the veterans were resentful. And so I don't know if you guys remember when early on in his career in the playoffs, he shot 4 air balls against the Jazz and they ended up losing. And he was just getting murdered by everyone. And I went up to him and I said, hey, you know what? I know you're gonna get past this. I believe in what you're going to become. And I just felt, he's 18, 19 years old, and he's like getting just hammered by everybody. And he looked at me with this little smirk, and he just goes, "I'd take every one of those shots again." And I was like, okay, yeah, there's nothing to worry about here. This dude's confidence has not been the least bit dented. But
yeah,
from that point, he kind of appreciated where I was coming from. And obviously I was working for ESPN, so it was a great platform. But, he invited me up to his house. He gave me unbelievable access. If I texted him, he got right back to me. He was always available to me. And so it was, but there was one time where like we were supposed to do something. We were supposed to do a story together. We were supposed to do an interview or whatever. And he hung me up, and I had some kind of family commitment thing that was screwed up as a result of it. Yeah. And I said, Kobe, like, dude, this is where I draw the line. Like, don't screw up my time with my family unless there's a really good reason. Like, I'd rather not do the story, or just don't make that promise. And so there are times where you just got to you got to be straight up with somebody and go, hey, that's not okay by me.
Yeah.
On the other hand, like Steve Nash, I knew that he loved to play soccer.
Yeah.
And so I'd go to Kauai every fall right before the season started, kind of get away. And I had a group of guys that I played soccer with there. And I kept telling Nash, I was like, dude, like, you should, if you come over, I'll show you how to surf. You'll love it. We play pickup soccer. It's beautiful. It'll be a great getaway for you. If you ever think about, getting away, I'm telling you, the north end of Kauai, go to Honolulu.
Yeah.
And so I'm over there, and my phone rings, and it's Nash. And I'm like, what's up? He goes, I'm here. I go, what? He goes, I'm here. I'm at the airport. Like, where are you? Let's go. So this is when he was married to his first wife, and he didn't tell her about the soccer. Like, so he asked me where it was, and I told him. So he kind of arranged for them just to drive by, and he goes, "Oh, Hanny, look, those guys are playing. Like, you mind if we stop? Let's just go check it out." And then one of my buddies kind of blew it because he knew that Steve was coming. "Hey, Steve, what's up?" And his wife looked at him like, I thought this was just happenstance. Like, you knew this was here? Like, yeah. So anyway, I had opportunities like that.
Is that what led to their divorce?
Not
that, but things like that. Yeah.
So obviously, you were close with some players, but as someone who is an analyst, do you keep in close contact with front members of NBA teams' front office, like GMs and stuff as well?
Yeah. I mean, particularly now doing things remotely, and it used to be like you go to a game. I would go to games not to watch the game as much to go catch up with people, to see the coaches and the GMs and get 5-10 minutes in their office where we could have a one-on-one conversation, just to kind of just have a real conversation, and also kind of touch base. There's something about just face-to-face time that is really important in maintaining relationships. Yeah. And that has been a lot harder now with all the COVID regulations. And so the phone numbers that I have and the relationships that I had built have been really valuable, because I can still write and do all these things and talk to all these guys from home and be able to write stories. And so, if I'm working on an Andrew Wiggins piece right now, so I went up to practice and I sat down and talked to him. And I'll go up and I'll talk to Kerr, or if their team comes through and I have a chance to sit down with somebody, I'll do that, or have lunch, with them. But a lot of it is by phone. And I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't have hadn't built up the relationships that I have.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
absolutely. And like, I mean, we rarely we get like a random like most people that watch the show are our friends, you know, family, but we'll rarely get a random person hating or commenting. But like if we get like a hate comment once in a while, I mean, that could even affect me. And I can't imagine for you, like obviously you probably get tons just because I mean the world is crazy. There's so many people on social media.
Work.
How hard is it hard for you to deal with it? Like, I mean, obviously by now you're able to deal with it just fine, but at one point, did you not have this thick skin?
Yeah, you know, I mean, it still pisses me off.
Yeah.
Like there's still times that I want to go back at somebody. But I've learned that, first of all, I had, you know, the first lesson was that there was a couple of people who came at me really hard and I didn't go back at them hard. I basically just asked them, I said, you know, like, why are you coming at me like that? Or this is why I think the way that I do, but you're free to, you know, or I just said, you know, thank you for sharing your thoughts, which was, you know, I was being real sarcastic, but they didn't know that. And they would say, oh man, you know what? I was too harsh. I'm a big fan. You know, I read you all the time, or
once you respond,
whatever it was. What's that?
Once you respond, You know
what? Sometimes they just want attention.
Yeah.
You know, they just want to be heard.
That's true. And it takes the wind, it takes the wind out of their sails if you like you kind of agree with them. You're like,
exactly. Like, hey, you know, that's a fair point. I'll keep that in mind, or, you know, whatever, or appreciate you sharing your thought, you know, whatever it is. Like, yeah, if you go back at them, then it's just going to escalate. If you kind of like take it in stride, then it usually settles things down. But, you know, it's funny. Colin Cowherd is the one who said to me, he went through that when he first, like, he was working up in Portland, and I don't know if it was a radio show or he was doing something, and like he was getting all this hate mail. He's getting, I don't know if they publicized his email or whatever, but he went to his boss and he's like, God, look at this. You know, look at all these emails I'm getting that are just shredding me. And his boss said, oh, that's fan mail. He's like, what? He said, look, they care. They're watching you and they care about what you say. So whether they love what you're saying or they hate what you're saying, the fact is they care about what you're saying. And that's what you're trying to accomplish here. You can't make everybody happy. You can't agree with everybody. The worst thing that can happen is nobody cares. Like they don't care.
Yeah, that's a real good point. Cause if they just didn't care, then they would be like, oh, you know, he thinks that, but
right.
I don't have the time to disagree with that.
Right. They don't. And that's for me. Like, unless I value that person's opinion, you know, and that's the other part for me is like when people come at me really hard, it's like, I don't even know who this person is. They don't know who I am. Why am I going to get upset about something that they might've said?
Yeah. For sometimes for me, it's hard to like tell the difference between just like a normal critique or hate and versus like they hate me and, you know, want me to be unsuccessful, but it's hard to tell on social media sometimes, but ignoring it is best.
Casey, they don't know you, right?
Right.
I mean, 99% of the time they don't know you. So how can their feelings or opinion of you be genuine when they don't know you?
Yeah, exactly.
They're just, you know what? I mean, look, some people get off on just being really mean and trying to take people down on social media. It's really, it's easy. It's safe. And you can just like, you know, you're kind of sucker punching people.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of hate, I mean, when I was researching you before this, there's a video on YouTube of a guy saying like that you don't deserve an MVP vote. Have you seen that video?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
What's that?
Or what made him make that video?
I can't remember what it was, but it was I voted I can't remember if I voted for Russell Westbrook or against Russell Westbrook, or I want to say Russell Westbrook was somehow involved.
Yeah. Russ fans are crazy.
I did see that video, and what I took solace from was in the comments section, there was a couple of people who said, like, dude, you're making way too much of this. And I was like, you know what? I've let somebody else fight my battles for me. But again, I didn't know who the guy was. And I will say this. If someone critiques me, if someone takes issue with something that I've said or written, I am willing to listen and hear what they have to say. Because I sometimes make mistakes, or there's things that I'm not taking into consideration. I'm willing. I think one of my mantras is to remain teachable. So, I've actually, it doesn't happen often, but now and then I'll have an exchange with somebody, like a fan who clearly knows their team, or they've got some insight, and the back and forth is actually pretty good, because even if they don't shift my mind, it's good practice for when I'm on shows to defend my position, right? It requires me to kind of respond and shape my argument and explain why I believe what I believe. And that serves or can serve as practice for when I have to go on air.
Yeah.
And you have an MVP vote. So this year, like every year you have one in the All-Star voting?
I've had one for
Yeah. Do you get a say in All-Star voting? Because I know that part of it's media.
I had a say in All-Star voting, and I vote on every award that's given out.
You vote my guy Jaylen Brown for All-Star?
Oh, hell no.
What?
No.
He was All-Star last year.
Well, first of all, we only voted for the starters.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. No, then yeah.
The coaches select the reserves.
Okay.
I didn't vote for Andrew Wiggins either. I voted for Rudy Gobert.
Okay. So you voted for 9 of the 10 that were selected, and that was your one. Wait, or I don't even know. Are you allowed to say? If you're not, you know.
Oh yeah. No, yeah.
Was there
I think the rest of, what, I'm pretty sure that I got the rest of them right, because I did a podcast about how there really was no suspense. It was pretty clear cut. Steph and John Morant, the way KD was playing, Joel Embiid, it just felt like there wasn't really a lot of a debate as far as the starting fives.
Yeah, I think these All-Star rosters are one of the better ones. I don't see many disagreements. I know there was argument for Jared Allen, but he got in today.
Right.
So yeah, I think.
Jared Allen got in over Jaylen Brown, didn't he?
Yeah.
Sorry, Casey.
JV's man. I'm a Cal fan. That's why.
Yeah. How does that process work? Do they send you a ballot and you fill it out or something?
Yeah, it's an electronic ballot, and it's got all of the players listed. And you just got to scroll through and hit the ones that you're voting for, and then.
You ever feel
oh, you know what? I didn't vote for John Morant. Now that I think about it.
Oh,
who'd you vote for?
Chris Paul.
Chris Paul. Yeah. Do you ever feel like just joking around and voting I don't know, Lance Stevenson and a ton of just vets that you like?
Well, you know what? That's what the players do. Everybody, so there's some fans are the players should vote for it, and The players don't take it seriously half the time.
Yeah,
they'll vote for the 12th man on their team, or they do a lot of jokey stuff. So I don't think we want it all in their hands.
Chris Chiozza.
Yes, exactly.
Hey, he made a buzzer beater once at Madison Square Garden against Wisconsin. I remember that. So yeah,
good knowledge, Casey.
Yeah, we've talked about that show. And then also, how often do you go to games? Because I know you were at the final game on that March of 2020 when lockdown happened, the Thunder Jazz game, I believe.
No, it was Clippers Nets. I was down in LA.
Oh, so there was another game.
There was another one that night. They were happening the same night.
Okay. Yeah.
And that was so weird.
Yeah, that was a weird night.
Man, it was. I walked down the hallway with, and they were already kind of instituting some of the protocol. Like, we didn't go into the locker room and we had to sit a certain distance. I mean, a lot of it seems funny now. Like, there were no masks involved, but we're just starting to put things into place. And I'm walking down the hallway with Marcus Morris, and he said, yeah, they told us they're probably going to shut it down at the end of the week. And you're like, they're just going to shut the season down? Like, that was so
it was shocking.
Unbelievable to think that was going to happen. And
it felt like the world was ending, like Ebola or something. I mean,
it was so crazy.
Did that game get played?
Yeah. They had just finished it.
Oh, okay.
So we went because I think it was sort of played at the same time as was the Jazz game. The Jazz Oklahoma City game was canceled, right?
Yeah.
That was the game Gobert got COVID.
Rudy tested positive, and then
right.
You could see Chris Paul go over to the huddle and ask what happened, and they're like, Rudy tested positive, so then they shut it down.
Right. But they were in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
So that happened before the Clippers Nets, or
yeah.
Right.
I would assume it would happen before because of the time difference.
Right. It happened earlier our time. But I think that we were already a go with the Clippers Nets. All I know is they played the game.
Yeah.
And I saw, and it's funny, like they were starting to put this protocol in and I saw Jacques Vaughn, who was the head coach of the Nets at the time. And like, we were supposed to all keep our distance, and he comes over and he shakes my hand and gives me a hug. And I was like, oh, okay. I guess we'll follow the protocol tomorrow. But it was weird. It was weird to be in a public place.
Yeah.
Like that for the first time, and having this stuff kind of being put into motion.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, the NBA did a great job with the bubble, though. I mean, did you go to that?
I did not. I had an option to go, but I was doing so much TV for Fox that it wouldn't have been worth it, because I would have the time that the players would have been available was the time that I would have been on air. So I would have been in the bubble, but not really been able to take advantage of it.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, and then back to the whole Twitter thing. I know I was looking at your Twitter earlier, and I know you're vocal about the whole Harden situation.
Yeah.
So what are your general thoughts on players kind of forcing themselves out of, quote unquote bad situations? Because I wouldn't consider, although the Nets are, have been losing lately, I wouldn't consider playing with KD and Kyrie a bad situation. But what are your thoughts on players forcing themselves out of situations? Like, in other words, do you think players are being too soft, pretty much?
Well, I don't think one size fits all. I think if a player signs with a team and they suddenly and he signs under certain pretenses, like they're building around him, or they're trying to make the playoffs, and then they suddenly change direction and now they're tanking. I think of Blake Griffin with the Detroit Pistons.
Yeah.
Like, he went there, he got into the playoffs. He basically played hurt in order to get them there. And then they decided the next year, like, you know what, we need to rebuild. We need to start over. And he was at a time in his career where it's like, dude, I only got so much time left. I want to play for a ring. So he was able to sit down and talk to the team, and they were able to come to an understanding. Harden's situation is different.
It's way different because he put himself into that. He already did what Blake did. He didn't like the situation. He got to Brooklyn, and things just started not to work out, and he's like, I want out again. It just seems
right. And when they asked him, I mean, apparently when they were asking him, are you okay? He was like, yeah, I was okay. I'm okay. Until he decided, nah, I'm going to get out. Like, he wasn't honest with them. He didn't work with them to resolve the situation so that the team didn't get burnt. And I feel that's a two-way street. Like, if you're going to trade a player, now sometimes it gets kind of difficult with the business of it, but like, don't make promises to a player that you can't keep. Like, we're invested in you. You're never going anywhere, whatever. Like, teams change. Like, that's not reality. So don't go that way, because you're gonna end up betraying a player. And if you do trade them, don't have them find out through the media. Don't have them find out from me calling, hey, is it true that you're getting traded? Like,
have you ever
give them the heads up, right?
Has that ever happened to you telling a player they were traded?
I'm sure it has. I mean, I know there's times where I've told players things that they did not know.
That's nice. Yeah.
Which is like really weird.
Yeah.
And you feel awkward. Like, I didn't want to be the one to tell him.
Yeah.
So, but that's why, like, and I took some heat for this, but I still believe it. Like, I don't like what Ben Simmons did either. Like, you got your,
yeah, I really didn't like that either.
Right. But there are certain things you don't do as a team that you don't do. And as a coach, like, you don't express indecision when it comes to whether you think you can win with a player. You don't express that publicly. Even if you think it, you don't say it. As a teammate, you don't leave the door open that suggests that you blame a teammate for that loss. You just don't do it. You don't do it publicly.
And Doc did say, like, he did say some words about Ben, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly.
So Doc and Joel Embiid had a hand in Ben Simmons being ticked off. I dare, for anybody who says, well, he's soft and he should be able to take some criticism or whatever. Name me another coach who has ever said, particularly after a playoff loss, when, all of the emotions and pressure is heightened, has ever said what Doc said about a player. Like, they were thinking it, but you don't say it.
Yeah, you don't.
So that's where, as much as I don't like that Ben, like, you're getting paid, dude, show up and play and play well and get yourself traded that way. I feel more sympathy for Ben. There's more justification in my mind for Ben doing what he's doing than what James is doing. Like, James just decides, I'm gonna quit.
Yeah, he quits on his team, whereas it felt like the team quit on Ben. And
right.
But what is Ben like expected to play? Because he's not like, is he going to play soon?
That's a great question. In fact, this is another story that I'm working on. I was talking to a bunch of scouts about scouts and personnel, GM people, front office people, about where they put the Sixers and the Nets in the hierarchy of teams in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
And they were actually, I had a guy today who was like, if say the mandate is lifted and Simmons comes back and play, if Simmons, KD, and Kyrie are on the floor together going into the playoffs, they could go to the conference finals. I've had two different scouts tell me that.
Yeah.
And I said, my pushback was, okay, KD's hurt right now.
Mm-hmm.
Kyrie can only play
away games.
Away games. And who knows how long it's going to take for Ben Simmons to get right, to get in shape. They might play at the most a dozen games together before the playoffs start. At the most. That's the absolute most, right? Is that enough to get a team ready? That's my thought. I'm skeptical that they can do that.
I think it's going to take more time than that.
Yeah.
I'd find it funny if like a some newspaper or website picks it up as like a headline grabber saying Ric Bucher says rips on Ben Simmons on local.
Yes. So you know what? Remember I was asked on the career day about the Kevin Durant thing.
Oh yeah. Berzo.
I misremembered. I didn't present that correctly. I was asked about the report that said Kevin Durant, Ric Bucher says that Kevin Durant going to the Knicks is a done deal. Mm-hmm. Right. And that was put out there. So this is what happened. I go on Colin Cowherd's show.
Yeah.
And he says, Bill Simmons just put out there that Kevin Durant going to the Knicks is a done deal. What are you hearing? And I said, I'm hearing the same thing. Now, I believe that it could be between, and then I went on to talk about it could be between the Knicks and the Nets or whatever. But my point was, what I was confident of was that he was leaving the Warriors. Everything that I was hearing from the Warriors and everything that I was hearing from the outside. And I had some people in the KD, Kyrie camp that were giving me good intel on exactly where those guys were. I knew that those guys had met a couple times already to talk about playing together.
And was this before the playoffs when we played the Raptors, or was this after the season?
This was during the playoffs.
Okay. So you
met
right
once during the playoff. They met once in May. I think when Kyrie came out to play, Kyrie was done already. Anyway, they met once in May, and then again like during the finals. And so and the thing is, Fox didn't put out there Ric Bucher's reporting. Like there were other outlets that grabbed that, to Casey's point, like grabbed that and made that a headline.
Yeah.
And are saying Ric Bucher's reporting that Kevin Durant to the Knicks is a done deal. And I'm like, yeah, technically I said that, but like, I'm not reporting it. I'm having a conversation with Colin Cowherd about something that Bill Simmons said. But you wouldn't say, like, I guess it's a compliment in a way, because Bill Simmons saying it didn't quite have the same like meaning as an NBA guy saying, a full-on NBA guy saying that Kevin Durant was going to the Knicks. So, all right, I'll take it as a compliment now that I look back at it.
That's true.
Still sucked.
And a few more NBA related questions. Who would be your favorite? I'm assuming you're a Warriors fan now.
No, I'm not a Warriors fan.
Neutral.
I'm not a fan.
Okay, I guess. But who's your favorite to win the chip right now?
Bucks.
Bucks
repeating.
I don't hate that because we saw the Warriors play them a few weeks ago and they just got slaughtered.
I can't tell you. I did not vote for Giannis Antetokounmpo when he won his first 2 MVPs. I thought that was.
Would you vote for him now?
One was Harden. I'm trying to think who the other one was, but it wasn't Giannis. It might have been LeBron.
Yeah.
LeBron 1 year, Harden 1 year. But then was it last year? Last year I did vote for him because I saw his game change. Like he just evolved. And now I watch him play. Like that mid-range shot is there. His decision-making, he's still playing at both ends of the floor. He's impressed. And I had guys like Jason Kidd, who I know well, who told me like 4 years ago, this guy's the real deal. He's going to get there. And I was like, okay, but I don't see it yet. But they were right.
So would he be your MVP vote right now if you made the vote now?
That is an excellent question.
I feel like him and which
he's definitely on the ballot. I will say it's a mixed bag right now.
Curry was that favorite until he went on his little slump, and Embiid has been dominating. And I feel like people take for granted how good LeBron is every year, and he doesn't really get that MVP consideration just because he does it so often.
I think that was true and valid 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
I think now he's not. Right now he's playing to score and to get the all-time scoring record. Because for what the Lakers are, he doesn't. They need a little less scoring and a little more playmaking. If you watch when he doesn't play, Malik Monk goes off.
Yeah, he does.
So what I need is LeBron, create a few more shots for the Avery Bradleys and the guys who can't get theirs. Let Malik take 20 shots a game. Let him go and do the other things, and maybe play a little defense too, because this team really sucks defensively. And LeBron ain't doing any of that. He ain't defending. He's not playmaking. That dude, and I give him credit, his mid-range and his three-point shooting are as good as I've ever seen them. I mean, he is scoring efficiently, but it's not ultimately what the Lakers need. He's the only playmaker they have. There's nobody else who can create for anybody else.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I like Embiid as a MVP. He's averaging the most points in the NBA. So,
which, by the way,
and John Morant, but
the James Harden thing, John Morant's another good one. I wonder if James Harden's going to screw up Embiid's MVP chances.
Yeah, I was thinking about that because right now he's obviously the number one option, but with Harden coming in there, I mean, a lot of those shots are now going to be shared. So
yep, and usage, touches, like his numbers are going to go down. So even if they win, like now he's got to share the credit. Up until now, it's been all his.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously winning is a big factor in it, and that's something LeBron's not doing right now.
Yep.
All right. Last question, because we kept you on way too long. So what would be a word of advice to young sports fans, like us, who eventually want to work in the sports field like you?
Fans or like, I mean, that's the difficulty is, are you willing to sacrifice being a fan?
Oh yeah. No, not sports fans now. Obviously you can't be a sport.
Right. But I mean, I think that's part of it is, are you willing to look at it as like, I can't really be a fan anymore. Like I can't, for me, like when I watch games now, it's work. It's fun work, but I'm always looking at them from an analysis standpoint. Like just sitting back and kicking it with my butt. And it's hard for me to watch with other people because I just have become kind of trained I need to really watch and see what's going on and catch all the nuances because I'm going to have to talk about it or I don't want to miss something or whatever. Yeah. So there's that. And then there's, if you really want to work in sports, you have to figure out how you're going to bring something different to sports.
Yeah.
Like a different perspective or a different base of knowledge or like something that's going to distinguish you. If you love sports and you study the teams and you tell me all about their statistics, I'm like, there's countless people who do that.
You don't stand out. Yeah.
Now, if you tell me that you can relate Shakespeare to how the Lakers season is going this year, now I'm leaning in going, tell me more. Right. Or like whatever it is, hey, the physics of Ja Morant, I can prove that the physics of what, his last dunk are different than anything we've ever seen before.
Yeah.
Tell me more. Like that's, you gotta find that lane where you're bringing something new to the party because that's what's going to distinguish you.
What do you think you brought that set you apart from others?
Well, I'm dating myself a little bit, but I came in with the idea of I'm going to try to give the player's perspective, especially the young player's perspective. Because when I came in, the coaches and the GMs and everybody, like they told you what was what.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't them, it was the veteran players. And what I did was I would talk to everybody, but I would, like, when everybody went to talk to the star, I would go to talk to the 12th man. Because one, we could have like a one-on-one conversation, whatever information I was getting, I was the only one getting it.
Yeah, that was new info.
Right. And as it turned out, and I didn't know this at the time, I was just finding ways to get information that other people didn't have, or perspectives that other people didn't have. A lot of those guys that weren't stars ended up, and in part, they didn't make the millions of dollars that the stars did. So they continued to work in basketball. So they became assistant coaches and head coaches and personnel directors and sometimes GMs. And now all the guys that I developed relationships with when nobody else would talk to them are suddenly in positions of power. The people that can really give me some good information, the decision makers.
Yeah.
So I think that's where I found my edge, my advantage.
Yeah. Shout out to James Michael McAdoo's and like Brandon Rushes of the world, because they're the people that will give you the info at the end of the day.
Dell Demps was a 12th man with the Warriors when I was covering them, and then he ended up being the GM of the Pelicans.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for joining us once again, and great insight as always, Ric.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Thanks so much.
A pleasure, guys. Good luck with the show.
Thank you guys so much for watching. If you've made it this far, this was a really fun interview, and we'd love to, interview other people. Maybe we can make this a series. Obviously, it's not easy to get these big time names on, but if we're able to do so, we will continue to do so. So, yeah, this was a really fun one. Can't wait to get it posted. You're probably seeing this in the midweek, and yeah, I mean, we'll see you guys on Sunday. But yeah, this was a fun one.
Yep.